welcome. I'm FR360 and I'm bringing you a gear review on the Eton Corporation Microlink FR360 multi-purpose digital radio American Red Cross edition. Man, it's a lot of titles for one little radio. But I'll tell you guys, this little radio has a lot of features to offer in a small little package. I received this radio from Eton Corporation about 2 months ago, and since then I've really been trying to put it through its paces to test it out and make sure I like the radio before making the video and making any recommendations on it. And the reason is I've owned several different self-powered or hand crank style radios in the past, and I've never really been satisfied with any of those products. But this is my first Eton radio, and over the past 2 months my mind is kind of made up that this radio really is a good product. The quality seems to be there and the function definitely is there. So what I want to do is go through and share with you each of the features that this radio has to offer tonight and break it down step by step. Let's take a look. Okay, let's get started with the exterior dimensions of the radio, as I know that's going to be important to a lot of people on how this radio is to be used. I got out my tape measure and I measured it up and jotted down my own measurements on the radio. And then I took a look at the packaging and saw that Eton has already posted those here on the back of the package, and I'm hoping you guys can see that clearly. It is width measurement first, that is 6.25 inches. Height measurement is 6.5 inches, and the depth measurement is 2.75 inches. And they say that the weight is approximately 1 pound. Those numbers are actually bigger than what I came up with when I measured the radio, but I just measured the housing of the radio basically, and I think Eton is going from the very top, tip of the knobs out to maybe the tip of the flashlight lens, which is over here, and probably depth-wise they're going from the antenna, which protrudes a little bit, so they're giving you maximum measurements there. However, with those numbers said, in my mind, for my purpose, this is not really a backpacking style radio. This is, for me, really more of a base camp situation radio. At home, possibly in your vehicle or in your hunting camp, that type of situation is where I think that this radio would best fit. With that said, some people may choose to use it as a backpacking type radio, and it will be fine for that if you have the space. Two, I'd like to mention that Eton makes a smaller version of this radio, and I can't remember the nomenclature on it. It's an FR Microlink, something like a 150. I'll put the exact reference code to that down in the bar below the video, so if you're interested you can check into it. And for me, because I like this radio so much, I'll probably check into the smaller version. If so, you'll definitely see an upload from me on it. Now, with all that said, I'm going to try to move fast because there's so much to talk about on this radio. Exterior, let's look at the features just roughly. Here's the speaker on the front of the radio. You got your volume knob, controls the master volume for everything on the radio. You've got your hand crank right here. We'll show you the function of that in just a minute. You've got your clock display. All right. You've got some control knobs here, which we'll talk about the functions of in a minute. All of your clock and sleep functions are all right here underneath the handle, and I don't know how well you can see them. We'll talk about the functions as we go forward. Up top, you've got your solar panel. Okay, on the side, it does come with a nice little lanyard. You've got your knob here, which controls the function of the radio, such as AM, FM, or weather bands. 7 separate NOAA weather radio bands there. This is how you tune the radio. On the back, you've got your antenna. You've got your audio input jack. You can take your iPod or other audio device and plug in and run it through the speaker system on this. It's kind of a cool feature. A lot of extras on this radio like that. It does have a headphone jack in case you want to listen to it privately. And now let's take a look right here, because this is one of the things I want to talk about first on the radio, the power functions. Okay, this is where your batteries are all going to be at, and also your AC in plug is on the back. It's right here underneath this little flap. Now, my first complaint about the radio, really my only real complaint about the radio, is they do not supply the AC charger plug with the radio. You got to purchase it separately. With that said, for me, I probably would never purchase it because I really got this radio because of the hand crank and the solar power functions. I own other radios that I can plug in, so I like the fact that this one is independent of batteries if necessary. Okay, this is the rechargeable battery for this radio. It's a nickel metal hydride battery. It can be charged one of 3 ways. I mentioned the AC plug. Okay, that's number 1. Number 2, hand crank function, which is probably my primary usage on this radio as far as charging it. That's probably what I've done the most of. But basically all you have to do is fold out this little arm and you can turn it. When you turn it, and I know you can't see this, there's an LED. It's a green LED, and it lets you know that you're turning this thing with enough force to generate a charge to charge that battery that I showed you before. Okay, and turning it right now, I'm creating that green light. I'm getting that green light on, so I'm creating a charge. You can go faster and harder, and it gets a little brighter. But I'm not going to, crank it too fast. I don't want to, put any wear or tear unnecessarily on it. According to the manual, just a charge like that, creating the green, just enough to get the green light on, 90 seconds, according to the manual, generates 15 minutes, roughly, of radio time. Now, through testing it over the past couple of months, I found that it's more like 2 minutes of hand cranking to get about 12 to 15 minutes, depending on the volume and so forth on the radio. So that's a rough, close estimate from Eton. 90 seconds, maybe 10 to 15 minutes in that range. So it'll give you an idea of how this functions. Okay. Now, the solar function, I have used that a couple of days. I had it out on my deck and I sat it out in the sun, and it actually ran the radio just by having it in the sun. The battery is completely dead, put it in the sun, and it actually ran and accumulated a charge. Now, Eton in the manual says it is okay to charge and use the radio at the same time, and that's pretty cool because a lot of electronic devices say charge first, then use, but this one you can use and charge with the solar panel at the same time. Okay, now we got solar charge, we got hand crank, we've got a AC option, and then if that's not good enough, then we can use AAA, just standard AAA batteries. If you don't have time for hand crank, you don't have sunlight, you can't plug it in, you can put those AAA batteries in there and run that, which for me is really cool because most of my small electronic devices normally run off of AAA, so I keep a lot of AAAs on hand, and I'll have them in place for this radio as well if needed. So I really like the flexibility of the power options on this radio. Okay, let's take a look at the alarm clock and the front display portion of this radio. First of all, you can see you have a nice digital display which tells you your time, and this is actually not an accurate time right now. I don't have it set. And then it also has a little display to let you know what power function you're operating on, whether you're using the hand crank or solar power option, which means you're powering from your nickel hydride battery. There is a battery function here which would put you onto your AAA batteries if you were using that. There's one other button here which is for the cell phone charger. I'll talk about that in a minute. Up here is your buttons that control your clock. It's just alarm clock on, alarm clock off button. Okay, that's pretty self-explanatory. Minute up or down, hour up or down, and then set. So if you turn your alarm clock on, you can set it hour up and hour down with that set button. There is a sleep feature. That's for the radio. Let's say I'm listening to the radio and I'm pretty sleepy. I know I'm going to fall asleep soon, and I want to conserve power on my radio. Don't want to wake up to a dead battery. What you can do is set it to go off in 5 minutes or 15 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour. It's got several different intervals on it, and I'm not sure the exact intervals, but it will shut itself down at your at whatever you program into it. That's a really cool feature for a radio like this. One other thing is it does have the alert, which I mentioned before. That's the button here to set the alert for the weather radio. So that's all your controls right up here, your knobs. And your display also has a backlight, so when I press that, I think you guys could see that come on. I think it stays on like 10 seconds and then it cuts back off. It might be 5 seconds and then it cuts right back off. It also has a PM AM display here as well.